Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Herron Talks. This is episode number 3. We have a very special guest today in honor of Women's Month. I wanted to make sure that we brought on some fantastic, exceptional women who are doing great things in the world of business and just doing well in life in general. And so Gracie Perez is our special guest today, and she is the leader of the Gracie Perez Mortgage Group, part of the Town Square Mortgage company, and she is absolutely amazing. And as far as helping people realize the dream of home ownership, she's got that on lock. She knows how to help anyone who is trying to make home ownership a reality. She knows how to get you there. If you have a desire to make that home ownership part of your life and legacy, all you have to do is want to do that. Gracie will show you how to get there, and at the end of the process, you'll have a friend for life. So we want to introduce her not just because of the mortgage background, but she has such a unique story, and one that is great for any, not just women, but men too. Anybody who's trying to accomplish something of some significance, her story is one that will be inspiring. And so, as you know, with this podcast, our goal is always to entertain, educate, and encourage. And Gracie has some core principles that she always likes to accomplish too when she's in this kind of setting in a venue like this. And so I'll let her talk about that in just a second. But I want to start, though, Gracie, by just kind of let everybody know who you are. But before we get into the more formal part of this, I'm curious as to, so when you drove over here from, were you coming from North Dallas? Were you at your office earlier? Okay. Yeah. So what do you listen to when you're riding around the city?
Yes. So I do like to listen to inspirational podcasts.
Okay.
Every so often. I also like to listen to just any song that will get my energy back.
Okay.
But today, though, I was just like quiet the whole time. I was quiet. I was enjoying the drive. I was just observing how people were moving back and forth, especially after the storm last night. Sure. So I was just quiet, and then all of a sudden I was here.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I do that sometimes too. I think, we spend so much time talking to other people and hearing so much. So there are times where a little peace and quiet goes a long way. Right. It kind of helps you compose your thoughts and gives you some clarity on some things that you might have been trying to figure out. So, yeah, quiet drives work too. It's rare that I do that, but today I was listening to we took my youngest son to the movies last night. Yesterday was his birthday. He is 16 years old now, so we've got our youngest is 16, so that we're getting old. It feels like yesterday he was born, and now he's 16. And so we went to go see the movie Creed 3, and it was outstanding. Great movie. And so a lot of the songs I've been listening to today, the entry music for one of the fighters was Nipsey Hussle. So I was listening to a lot different from what you were doing, Grace. You were listening to peace and quiet, inspirational, good stuff. I was listening to some things that were a little more hardcore this morning. So, but anyway, it's always, I'm always curious as to what people listen to and how they kind of occupy themselves on those drives and stuff. So cool. So Gracie, let's get into it. You are an outstanding businesswoman, right? And the world of business is not an easy one. In the world of finance, mortgages and things like that certainly is not an easy one, but you have navigated that in such a way that somebody might take for granted what you had to go through to get to where you are, because
Right.
you make it look easy.
Yes.
But just in talking to you and getting to know you, this was not necessarily the easiest path for you.
No, it was not.
So tell me where you're from and kind of give us a little background.
Yeah. So I think part of my success is due to the faith I have. Every time I get in my car, and part of that silence when I was driving here, I was repeating back to myself loudly, God, use me for a purpose greater than myself. And if I have the radio, if I'm listening to something else, then I don't concentrate my faith. And so I do it every time I get in the car for some reason. When I'm at the office, I get calls, I get texts, I talk to my team, and it doesn't mean that I don't necessarily have the time to communicate and have my beliefs right there with me. But for some reason, when I'm in the car, I'm able to say, God, use me for a purpose greater than myself. I think it gives me security. I think it allows me to get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And first of all, I'm super honored that you invited me being Women's History Month. I don't consider myself as I've made history for anyone, but I do have my mission in life, which is I educate, I empower, and I serve my community. I think those principles are super important to anyone. Whatever principles are that you have, you always have to serve and give back. I had a question somebody asked me the other day. It was related to success, and it was a very loaded question. And success to a lot of people could mean a lot of things. But to me is to accomplish a goal, but also to step back to help others around you.
Absolutely.
That's really what success means to me at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And it's incumbent upon those who are successful, and even those who are striving to be successful. Maybe they haven't made it yet. And quite honestly, none of us really, make it until, we'll say we're striving, we're trying to do something. So there's always, the journey is always moving forward. But at all points of that journey, it is incumbent upon us to reach back and help others. And so, and I know that about you. I know the empathy you have, the desire you have to help people. Mm-hmm. And so now you got to the United States relatively, you were still young, but you were a little bit older. So give me that story again, because you didn't make it here until the age of 18, and when you made it here, you didn't know English.
I didn't. So I convinced my parents. I'm the youngest of 5, and there is a very age gap difference between the 4 first siblings and me. So I grew up in Mexico with my parents. I essentially was the only child with them. And so my siblings were here in the States. At the age of 18, I convinced my dad to bring me to essentially meet them, spend some time with them, and then I would go back and go to college. I was ahead in academics over there, so I was able to essentially, just come here to the States, spend a few days, a week with them, and then go back and continue my life in Mexico. Well, when I came and I saw my siblings, I was like, I have a family. And I never forget the very first day I saw my sister. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers, mm-hmm. but one of them, she just kept on staring at me and staring at me and staring at me like if I was like who is she, right? Like, sure. She's my sister, but I haven't seen her in so many years. And that just got to me. I was like, I have a family. And we decided that I was going to stay. my older brother was like, do you want to stay? And I said, I do want to stay, but I think it's going to be a problem with Dad. And it wasn't easy.
So let me make sure everybody understands. So it was on this trip where you, on your 18th birthday, you asked to be able to go and see your family, to, in essence, meet them, because it's been so long and you were so young. And on the trip, you decided to let your father know you did not want to go back.
No, this is so funny because, and he loves Dr. Pepper, the drink, the soda.
Right.
And I do too.
Okay.
I didn't know, in Mexico, we didn't have Dr. Pepper. And if we did, it was probably very expensive.
Okay.
So we never had it at home. And I remember we were driving, and he's not the most talkative person.
Okay.
And I think deep inside, he was like, she's going to want to stay, you know? So on the way here, we were driving, and he would make a few stops, and he would like buy me like things.
Okay.
You know?
So he was already setting up how he was going to try to.
He was. And then I remember the first stop after we got to Texas, he was like, do you want a Dr. Pepper? And I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. But yeah, so it was, a soda. And so through all the way to, my sister lives in Alvarado. So we got to Alvarado, and he was telling me, we're going to go back and we have to go back to Mexico in probably a week. It'll give you enough time to spend with everybody. And then this is not the country for you to stay in. Like, you got to come back with me, and you have to go back to college or, start your career, and everything will be fine. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to spend a week with them. We'll have a great time. I'll get to meet them, quote unquote, and then I'll go back with you. Well, then 3 days later, I was like, I don't want to go back. So I was talking to my older brother. He has somewhat of more of a authority level because he's the oldest, and he was the oldest here. So he was like, I'll talk to Dad. And I was like, that's not going to be pretty. And he's like, it doesn't matter. You want to stay? He's like, I'll support you, and all of us will help each other out.
Okay.
And so that's how it was. He was shocked. My mom was shocked. And I was happy that I was going to stay. But little did I know the challenges that I was going to have to go through in order to make it, and to show and prove to my dad that I wasn't going to get lost in translation, and that I was going to end up graduating and being as successful as I humbly am. So they let you, however your big brother helped convince everybody, but you stayed. Now you stayed, but you had to. Now, even though you were 18, you needed to. Well, yeah, I needed my education, right? I promised myself I wasn't going to depend on anybody to translate for me. I did not know any English, but no, right? No and yes. Those are the easiest to learn. And so my sister's husband, who is like my dad, he said, well, we have to get you in school. And I was like, but I'm 18. And he's like, let's go ask. So we went to Venus High School, and they were like, well, she's kind of like borderline supposed to be graduating this year. And they were like, but we can probably, if her academics are ahead, she can probably, test out of some classes. So I requested my transcripts from my school in Mexico, and that's what I did. I was like testing out of like all the math, all the chemistry, because numbers are numbers. So I already knew everything that was presented to me.
Sure.
That's how I got ahead in my academics here in high school. But I needed the language. I needed to know how to communicate and how to speak English.
Right.
So then the best opportunity that I could figure out was I need to become the ESL's teacher assistant. So when I was talking to him, my Spanish is perfect. He was like, your Spanish is great. And I was like, Yes, I know.
You're
I was
like,
like,
it should be. That's
how
right.
can we help each other out? Because there is a difference. When you, and you can tell right away, like there is a difference in, different levels, different regions of Spanish. So I essentially, when I speak Spanish, I don't really have an accent. If you come towards the north, you can tell, oh, you're from the north side of Mexico or the south or the east or the west. Okay. My Spanish is very neutral. So a lot of the times when I'm speaking Spanish to somebody, they're like, I can't really identify the accent. Where are you from, etc. So he was like, I can't really tell that you have an accent. He's like, which is good because then it'll help you teach other people the proper Spanish. But long story short, I convinced my teacher to allow me to be his assistant. And essentially I was creating all the Spanish tests for him. And I was like, let me grade him. And so that's how I was learning English. I also created flashcards, and I was learning a few words per day, and then it became like 3 words per day, and then it was like 5 words per day, and then I was like, oh, I'm able to like put a sentence together. And I was depending on my nieces and nephews because of the age gap between myself and my siblings. My nephews are my age. Okay. So I was depending on them to help me translate, a few things. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't needing their help. And they hated it because then they couldn't hide things from my sister. And my sister was like, what is it that they're saying? What are they doing, etc. So that's essentially, then I was like, oh, I don't need them anymore. I can communicate with other people. It wasn't perfect. Sure. I have an accent. But I think I lost the fear and embarrassment of I need to speak English with the people around me.
Okay. And so now how quickly do you think you became fluent?
I think it was, to be honest, probably between 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, like I remember U.S. history. I was understanding, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then economics was a thing for me. That was my favorite teacher. I could not help, but like to be super excited to go to my economics class.
Okay. And so then how much time did you end up spending in high school here in the States? Was it just that?
And then I graduated early, Now, because then I was the oldest, and I've always been super matured, and I had friends. I still have a few friends from high school, luckily, and I've treasured them. But I could tell that my way of thinking was completely different. I was like 10 steps ahead of most people. What they thought it was funny, it wasn't funny to me. Right. I kind of like had to like fake it, and I had bigger goals for me. And so they were like, well, you have all the credits between this and this and that. You don't need to take any more classes. So I ended up like graduating early. I came back to do the walk, but it wasn't like the same. Mm-hmm. And to me, I was like, okay, like I have to close this door so that I can then continue with my education here.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So you went, you graduated back from Mexico, or you mean here in Texas?
No, here. Okay. So, because I started school, in September. Okay. And then by March, I was like done. Okay. I had all the credits that I needed. Okay. And they were like, well, you have nothing else to do unless you want to volunteer at the office. And I was like, no, I need to get a job. Right. Okay. So, and I said, but I'll see you in May, for graduation. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, very good. So then, okay. So you go from, and that in and of itself is amazing, that here you are, new country, new customs, new things to get acquainted with.
Knew everything. Everyone looked the same to me. Okay. Isn't that funny? Everyone. They all had like blue eyes. Yeah.
And so, and you have to learn a new language at the same time. Mm-hmm. And in all the while, you're trying to make sure you're positioning yourself to where you can independently take care of yourself, right, and not have to go back to Mexico. You can actually create a life for yourself.
Absolutely. I was like, I cannot be a burden to my siblings, which they didn't see it that way.
Sure.
But I was like, in a way, deep inside of me, I was like, they need me. You know, and they're all successful. They're like, I love them. But I was like, they need me. Like, I feel like I need to be used for a purpose greater than myself. And so that's that.
Yeah, well, that seems to be kind of a theme of your life, to always be, you want to be a contributor. You want to make sure that that you are using your skills and your gifts to the betterment of others,
Right.
which is consistent. That's what you are. That's what I know of you,
Right.
you now. And so what's the job? So what do? We graduate from high school in this brand new country.
Yeah, this is so funny because they were opening a new restaurant, Italian restaurant in town. And I saw the big sign hiring, hiring day is going to be this day at this time. I show up for orientation. They had not hired me. But I had my documents ready, right? I was like, you're going to hire me.
Okay.
Like, you need me, right? And I need you. And for the longest time, they would make fun of me because they were like, you were not supposed to be hired. I was not supposed to be hired at that restaurant. But then I think...
And you said you were not supposed to be hired.
I was
Why were you not supposed to
because they
be
had
hired?
already interviewed and they had enough people for that
Gotcha.
restaurant. I was like the extra.
Okay.
Right. And so I think the hiring manager felt bad and he was like, okay, like we'll have you, be the hostess or whatever.
Okay.
So I think they felt bad. Deep inside, he felt bad.
Right.
And he's like, we'll have an extra crew member.
Okay.
And so I was hired into the restaurant business. I ended up traveling for corporate to open most of their restaurants in different states.
Okay, so how do you, and that's a big thing too, is how do you get from, you just learned English like 2 days ago, and now you're here at this place, and they're entrusting you to go to other cities to open restaurants? So what tell me what happens, what kind of relationships have developed, or what have you done that makes them say, we trust you to go do this?
I've always worked so hard, and I've never taken anything for granted. I took that opportunity as my only opportunity to make it work, right? So I was always on time at work. I was always volunteering for extra hours. I was training other people. I've always been kind to others, and I think I'm always super positive. And we were working 17 hours a day, so I was always like, we have to make it work. We have to make it work, even if I'm not the owner of the restaurant. So I've never taken an opportunity for granted. And I felt like if I wasn't supposed to be hired and I made it and they let me stay, then I had to pay them back. And so I literally started making salads. And then I was doing hostess. And then I was moving up through all the stages of the restaurant itself, where I became a restaurant manager.
Gotcha.
Once I became a restaurant manager, I knew the insides of it in and out, like anything and everything that you needed to know about the restaurant, the food, what size should be the diced tomato to be cut. Like, I literally studied, and I was like, I need to be an expert.
Gotcha.
In order for me to keep my job.
Now, okay, and so here's a couple of points here that I think I've picked up, and what everybody, if you're listening, you might want to make these particular notes. Number one, I hear you say you had to become the expert. So it was not, she was not satisfied to just show up and just kind of wait out the time. So in other words, I'm supposed to be here from 3 o'clock until to close, and I'm here.
Right.
And then whatever I'm supposed to do, I'll just do it.
Right.
That that was not your mindset at all. Your mindset was, I'm going to be a plus. I'm here and I'm going to be of value to this. In fact, this system is going to work a whole lot better because of me. And I'm going to become an expert. And so I'm going to master the level where I am. But at the same time, I'm also going to learn the next step and the next step. And so that gets noticed, especially in an industry like the restaurant business, where you've got a lot of people who kind of come in and come out, that gets noticed when somebody knows I can depend on her, right? And I know we're in good hands because of her. That gets noticed and that gets promoted, and that seems to be exactly what happened to you. So they start sending you to other places.
Yeah, so then they're like, we're going to open new restaurants, and I was the type of person that if the kitchen was behind, I had no problem stepping in the kitchen and working right next to the sous chef to help him get the dishes out, right? And he knew that. And he kind of like hated it because I was the only female doing that, right? I'll be like, okay, what can I help you with? And he would be like, okay, grab this and this and that. And I was like, got it. So I had no problem stepping in the kitchen. I had no problem cheering on the dishwasher, helping him because we were a team. I had no problem going in to the front and just talking to the clients or helping up front. So then they started opening restaurants, and I became part of that team of opening restaurants all over the state. So I was doing that for a little bit.
Gotcha. Now you end up, though, as you're moving up in the ranks there at the restaurant, and you decide that I am interested now in finance.
Right. The money was really good. I was still very young, and I knew that at the end of the day, I needed an education. And so I was like, I need to graduate from college. What is it that I want to do now that I been through this whole experience? I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but then economics, finance, management was, at the end of the day, what was good for me, right? I was like, I'm already ahead most of people. If I go into medical school, number one, it's expensive. Number two, I got to watch my finances because I asked my brother to let me borrow $3,000 to buy my first car. And I promised I was going to pay him back and never ask him to let me borrow money again.
Okay.
So that was like, I had to watch my finances. I was like, what is best for me right now? Because remember, my parents were not here. I had my siblings, but they had their own expenses, their own families. Right. So the last thing I wanted to be was another, expense for them. Sure. So then I was like, I have to get myself in school. I have to get myself a degree. At the end of the day, your education and your credit is what follows you wherever you go. So then I moved from Texas to Indiana, and then I got married. I have 3 kids. The oldest is she's 15. And then I was like, I'm still not losing track of graduating from college. Okay. A lot of things happened. I ended up enrolling in college and moving to Indiana to Grace College. I graduated from Grace. But when I moved to Indiana, the first thing I noticed, because that's where the Grace College is, the first thing I noticed in that town is that there is a church and a bank. A church and a bank. And I said, okay, I have 2 options here. I either go work at a church or I work at a bank. And I was like, I'm going to give the banking industry a chance. So they didn't really have any openings. My resume was like overqualified. Basically, that's what they told me. But then they needed a bilingual part-time teller. Okay. I said, that works for now. I've worked ever since I got here in the U.S. I could take a break for a little bit. And my part-time hours only lasted 1 day. By my second day, they were like, we need you full-time. And I ended up moving up to the ladder. I ended up I was a part-time for a little bit, and then I was a full-time, and then I was learning all the sections of how to become a branch manager.
Now, are you learning these sections proactively on your own? So in other words, you're in a particular position, but your interest is to know these other sections.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay.
I was watching the ones that were above me. I was listening. I was watching the way they would talk to clients. I was like, what else can I learn? The banking world has great programs for those that are on the early stages of a career. I was like, they have like a university, each bank. So every class that I could sign up for, I would take. I would talk to the teachers. I would talk to my branch manager. And then I started getting promoted.
Gotcha.
They were like, do you want to move on to do this? Do you want to move on to do customer service, opening accounts? Do you want to move on to opening, CDs? Do you want to move on to doing small business loans? Right.
So your acquisition of knowledge of different things and the relationships that you were starting to make through the process of learning these different things and exhibiting a high skill set as far as the jobs you were given, they all put you in a position to where doors open, right? So doors open for you. And a lot of people say, well, they think certain people get lucky, or they think, this happened only because she knew this person and knew that person. But it sounds like what I've always believed is that if you make yourself so valuable and so indispensable, there's always going to be a place for you.
Right.
And in fact, those who are in charge, or those who have the opportunity to advance your career, they're going to do it because they'd rather see you there than somewhere else doing the same thing. And so it sounds like, you had it down. And so you move and do all this stuff, and then you decide when to get into the whole mortgage thing.
Right. So then I got my branch, and funny story, the bank was running a promotion for secured credit cards, or just any credit card, because when you work for a bank, it's all about the ratios, the sales ratios. You want to get your client, and you want to sell a credit card, a debit card, a checking, a savings. The more things you have with a bank, the harder it is for you to move.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yes, that's true.
That is the tactic. Oh, no, I already have like all my things with that bank. I'm not moving, right? So that is how they keep their clients. So I was always number one, right?
Okay.
But not because I wanted them not to move, because I took the time to learn my client's story. Tell me your story. Why can I help you? What are your needs? What are your wants? How's your family? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I was always like thinking for the client, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. I think you should open this card. I think you should get interest paid on your money that you're not using. Why don't we open a CD for 13 months and let the bank pay you $300? At the time, the rates were 14, 15%, almost 18. And so that's what I was doing. And they were like, well, we just partnered with this credit card company, and we're going to run a promotion. And I was looking at the website on the credit card company, and they said secure credit cards. And I was like, what is that? And it was to help people establish credit. Oh, what? I was like, where has this tool been? I was like, anybody that would come in, I was like, how's your credit? What is credit? What does that mean? Do you mean I need credit? Do you mean I need credit to buy a house? Do you mean I need credit to get a small loan from you? Because I was doing personal loans as well. And I was like, no. So here's the plan of action. You're going to open this credit card, and then you're going to put $300 in the savings for that credit card, and you have $300 to use every month. And I would show them. I would teach them. I would guide them. And so, excuse me, that's how I started helping people build their credit. Then from credit, I was like, okay, I need to give you a personal loan of $1,000 for the next 13 months. So I was helping people establish credit, but I was winning like all the contests for the region. They were like, oh, Gracie's going to win. Like it doesn't matter what we do. Gracie is going to win. And I was like, it's about the journey. And I told the company, because they were like, what is it that you're doing that like it makes you, they had to give me a 1099 because the credit card company had to give me a 1099 because of everything that I was doing. And it was like surpassing the amount of money that you could win in this promotion or whatever. It's just simply a lot of people were not aware of credit.
So here's what I'm learning just listening to your story. So I think what makes you, the reason you're so successful in the whole mortgage business is because there is a people skill that you have that is not you-centered, but they-centered. You're more focused on the needs of the client or the potential client, whoever it is, even if they don't become a client of yours. Your focus is them first, you second.
I get super excited when I know that the next move they need to make is going to be so good for them. And they don't see it yet.
Sure.
And they're all scared.
Right.
But I'm super excited that sometimes I have to hide my excitement because like they may take it the wrong way. Right. But I know what tomorrow is going to bring for them. And at the end of the day, it's going to be an amazing move for them.
Gotcha. So love it. And this makes perfect sense why you're so good at what you do. So you become so let's fast forward. So you're now we got the Gracie Perez Mortgage Group, super successful. You're able to you're closing all of these loans and doing all this great business. And I noticed that so you obviously have you have high end clientele, so people who are buying big houses and things like that. But you also have kind of like how you started in this whole business. You have some people who are brand new. I don't know how to do this. You have a lot of first time buyers, a lot of minority buyers who have not had necessarily a whole history of knowing how this situation works. And yet you're able to traverse both worlds, both types of clients. And I think the skill set that you have allows you to do that in such a way that you can't help but to be successful because your focus and your attention is always on the needs of the person in front of you.
I've never lost track of myself. I've always kept myself very grounded. At the end of the day, I know where I come from, and you can't really buy love. Right? There is, you can't buy it. So, but to go back, and I'll go fast on this, I ended up getting my own branch. I was the community person for the whole region. I had lines outside my office for people trusting me with anything and everything. If they got a letter because of this and that, I was able to read it to them and be like, don't worry about it. This is just marketing. So then I graduated school. I graduated college, and I said, I have to go back into the real world because it's northern Indiana, right? It's like country over there. Okay. I was like, there is much more things for my people here in Indiana. If I go back to Texas and then somewhat make it, I can always come back and show them and probably, hopefully educate, inspire, and serve my community. So then I graduated college. I gave the bank a 6-month notice to help so that I could train the person that was going to take over my branch. They could never find it. They ended up hiring, somebody within, not bilingual. I then start interviewing. So with all the experience that I got at the bank, I was doing personal loans, small business loans. I was doing conventional financing, 20% down with my eyes closed. No FHA, no USDA, no down payment assistance, none of that. So I was doing my research because I could have found a job at Chase, Bank of America, those big banks, with my eyes closed.
Sure.
But that's not what I wanted. Right? I was like, that's not going to challenge me.
Sure.
Like, I already know the banking industry. I know I can get a job and I can go work for corporate America. Nothing wrong with it. But I knew that I had a passion for helping people with their credit, with their businesses, with their personal finances, with building a legacy, with helping them advance in the United States. The only way I could do that was to concentrate my career in lending. But I didn't want to do a car loan. You know, I didn't want to be a car loan financial advice, none of that. I said, I need to be a mortgage loan originator. So then I interviewed in Texas with a few companies. Everyone said no because I didn't have a pipeline and I was moving from one state to another.
Gotcha.
The only way I found my way around to a company was if I was going to be somebody's assistant. So I Googled loan officer assistant. I called that person, Crystal Parkinson. She's like, yes, I'm hiring. We talked over the phone. I sent her my resume. She's like, I cannot pay you what you're making right now.
Sure.
I was like, not a problem. I'll take a pay cut. So I took a pay cut. I was her assistant. I basically forced her to hire me, and she'll tell you this.
Okay.
It's so funny now. She forgot about me and all of that. And I'm like, I haven't heard back. Like, when do I start? I got in, and I told her, I'm going to be your best assistant. And a few months later, she's like, I'm going to be working for you, like, pretty soon.
Sure.
And then within a year, she's like, you need to be on your own. She's like, you're already bringing in loans. You have your own contacts. You don't need to be my assistant. And that's how my lending journey started in Texas.
And so here's the thing, too. A lot of people need to look at this because most are unable to make the connection in their head that sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward.
Yes.
And so here you are already, you've been running a bank and doing all that stuff. And here you are having to decide that, okay, I'm going to now go and be someone's assistant.
Yeah.
So that I can now break into this and then make my step forward.
Yeah, because everybody was saying no.
Yeah.
You don't have clients.
So, okay.
You're not going to survive.
Right. So tell me how do you do that? How do you, because most people can't do it. They won't see that. They'll say, well, no, I don't need to be anybody's assistant. I need to do this. And so, but they because that's not available to them, even though they think they've earned it and deserve it, and in many cases they do, but because they are unable to make themselves take that step backwards, they end up having to go do something else. That dream is deferred. They end up now in a whole nother industry. How is it that you were able to fix in your mind that it is okay to take the step back?
I'm very determined. And in a way, I've learned that I'm a little hard on myself most of the time. But I saw so many things in banking that with my clients that I was like, I'm not going to be in that same situation. So, and I was like, I am not going to be that person financially. It put me in a different mentality than most people, where I was like, I saw it. I saw how people were only surviving on $100 after they pay rent once they get their Social Security. I saw how many moms were just depending on child support but not working. So many stories I have in my mind that I was like, I am not going to be that person, but how can I help my community? How can I help them, think differently? So I'm always constantly thinking on the next goal, and it's not about money, right? It's about positioning myself and breaking the narrative for the people that are behind me or that will come after me. I knew nobody in lending, nobody in banking, nobody in college, nothing, nobody. I'm not related to the owner of this or that or that. Nothing.
Right.
I open every door on my own, but with a serving heart.
Right. And that serving heart. So here's what a lot of people will probably hear in that. I want to make sure they understand properly. So because you're not saying that you never got help, that there's nobody who didn't, that assisted you once they saw what you were doing. What you're saying, though, is that you paved the way for those opportunities to happen. So you paved the way to be able to make that relationship happen that then opens a door.
Right.
And that you didn't come with a situation where you kind of had a loaded deck. You already, you didn't have all those advantages. Yeah. And you knew that and didn't make excuses for it.
And there's nothing wrong with it, because I'm hoping that my kids,
are able to take advantage.
Right. Sure. Don't start where I started.
Absolutely.
And funny that you say that, and I'm glad you mentioned it. I don't believe in self-made, because I believe that at any point in your life, you have always had somebody that has been giving you a lending hand.
Absolutely.
I am no one without my team. I'm no one with my family supporting me. I didn't get here where I am today by just wishing for it. I've worked very hard, but also we never see what's behind closed doors. So there has been sacrifices. There has been, burning my lashes in the middle of the night, working, sending pre-approvals at 3 a.m. And starting my emails with, hello, client or families, I promise I'm not drunk. Kind of making it a joke. Sure. Because if my loan officer is sending me an email at 3 a.m., something's wrong.
Right.
Right? So I try to start my emails at 1, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. by making a joke out of it, so that they would kind of get past by it and concentrate on getting a loan. So I've always been very determined on my goals for a greater purpose.
Right. So let's do this, because I also want people to know and understand this, that your dedication to what it is that you do, making sure that you know all of the angles, all of the things that can give a client an advantage. You've made sure that you've learned those things. And if you don't know, you're going to go find out, because you don't want anyone that is trusting you to make sure that they are able to take advantage of a situation that's out there. You don't want anybody to miss out because you didn't know.
Correct.
And you even had a deal. We were just talking about the other day. There's so many people. We were discussing the fact that there's so many people who could actually be homeowners and are not homeowners, simply because they don't know. They don't know they can. You've closed deals here recently where people go to closing and they get a check back at closing, right? Yeah. So you'll get people who say, "Oh, I don't have enough money to do this. I don't have enough. My credit is not where it needs to be. I can't do this." And the thing is, they need to just sit down and talk to someone.
I need to know their story. Tell me your story. Because there's so many programs out there. I just did a virtual class with Dallas Habitat for Humanity, and City of Irving, City of Dallas, City of Mesquite, and Plano. They all have grants for home buyers, and they can be stacked. So they're stackable grants, meaning that we get you a down payment assistance program from the state. And then we go, depending on the city where you got under contract or where you're buying, we can then also guide you and contact the city to see what other programs they have. Owning a home in the U.S. is not an excuse. Not an excuse.
So here's the deal. If somebody says, okay, all right, I believe you, Gracie. Yeah. Okay. I believe there's probably a way that I could make this happen. How do they start? What do they do?
Right. So I want to talk to you. I want to learn your story. You don't talk to my assistant. I take all the calls myself. I make a connection with you. And I want to learn. I want to know your story. when you start talking to me and telling me all your worries, I can guarantee that I have a solution for it.
And here's what was really cool. When I first met you, you were talking to another agent. You were explaining to them, and I think the phrase you used, you were available 24/7. I was like, and I turned around. I think I was doing something. I turned around. I was like, who is saying this? And so I looked back, and I'm listening. So I'm not paying. I didn't want you to know I'm paying attention, but I looked and I was like, okay, so 24. How does he figure 24/7? So I said, let me wait and see what the experience is like with the person you're talking to. And though he tells me about a week later, I think she's available. She really is available 24/7. He was like, she is if I send her a message, no matter what time, no matter what the deal is, she is on top of it. And then what I learned later is that you have a whole team. And so, and 24, and y'all don't do this. Please don't be trying to test her, calling at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Don't do that. What that really should mean is that she is going to be accessible, and you won't have to worry about a situation where she disappears. Right.
Yeah, because the calls that I get from my partners, and number one, I'm an extension of their business. That's how I take it. I know that if they're calling me, they're not going to, some of them might. Some of them might call me, oh, have you had lunch? You want to go to lunch or whatever, make a connection. But you're not going to call me to be like, what you had for breakfast today, right? If I see that you're calling me, you have a question and you have a lending question, right? So I got to answer that question. If the clients call me, they're not going to call me like, where are you going today, right? They're going to call me because they have a question. So my thing with me being available, I'm also a home buyer, right? I've been on that side, and I know what it feels like to not have the right answers. I don't want you to go to bed all worried. I don't want you to go to bed saying, I never got a hold of Gracie. Oh my gosh. She never texted me back. She never called me back. If I'm on a phone call, and you're calling me, I'm going to send you a text and be like, I'm doing this. I will call you as soon as I can. I finish my day answering everybody back. Or, if I don't call you back, I send you a text, and then we can then be like, can we connect tomorrow? But so that's why I take it so personal. I don't want you to go to bed all worried. Imagine, I wonder if my credit was okay. But Grace is not going to get back to me till like days later. No, I'm going to tell you what your credit score is like. And I'm going to tell you if you can buy a house, or if not, here's a plan. But I need you to follow it. Right.
So what I like to do, anybody who is, Gracie and I are going to make this happen. There are so many people out there right now who need to be in a house of their own. If you're thinking, I can't pay a mortgage. Well, guess what? You're paying a mortgage. You just happen to be paying your landlord's mortgage. And I used this example one time. I said, what if your landlord sent you a card with a picture of a young man graduating from college? And in the card, the landlord wrote to you, thank you for putting my son through school.
Yeah.
How would you feel about receiving that?
Right.
And most people, when they heard that message, they cringed a little bit. And then some of them got in their feelings. They were a little mad at me for even bringing it up. Right. But I was like, no, I didn't say that to try to embarrass anybody. I wanted you to know that's what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then now you got to figure out how to get your kid to college.
Absolutely.
While you've been paying and sending other people's kids to college. So let's stop it. It's time out for that.
Absolutely.
And the thing I want you to do is, if you're out there right now and you're saying, okay, all right, Al, I want to take you up on this. Okay, Gracie, I want to take you up on it. I want you to commit to that. And all you have to do is reach out and say, okay, I want to do this.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Gracie's ready. I'm ready. The whole Monument Realty team is ready. We want to make this happen. And, I didn't want to just turn this into a mortgage conversation, because Gracie's got that down. So any mortgage question you have, she can answer it. Any mortgage solution that needs to be created, she can do it. I just wanted you to know who she was.
Thank you.
She's got such an incredible story. She's an incredible lender. I like to, we'll call her Padlock. I'm calling her Padlock Gracie because anything mortgage-wise, she's got it on lock, right? So Padlock Gracie, who also goes by on social media and Instagram, you are the
Miss Mortgage.
And so we'll make sure that we put all that information out to everybody so that they can follow you, and obviously they can reach us. We'll turn them on to you. But is there a way that you'd like to share right now for everybody to contact you if they need to?
So I branded myself.
Okay.
You're the best asset that you can have. So my website is gracieperez.com. You can find a little bit of my story there. You can also apply on my website. My email is info@gracieperez.com. If you have a question, you send us an email. I use my personal cell phone for my families because I want to be your lender for life. You're going to get my cell phone. You don't get my work phone. You don't get like the office. So my number is 972-878-8823. And call me, send me a text, send us an email. We're in Dallas, so we're always available.
Always available. And again, I hope you all got a lot out of today. Happy Women's Month to all the ladies out there. It was great talking to a great businesswoman on today. And so hopefully you got something out of today. Please like, share, subscribe, do all those great things. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you.